The pink hibiscus was a plant given to me by my grandparents. I had to show my grandparents that I deserve that plant because only then can I have more plants, right? It's always the thing about parents telling you, if you cannot look after your stuff, how to get you more toys, right? So to me, it was the plant. I just wanted to make sure that pink hibiscus did well and it flourished. And so I got more and more plants each year.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Woodlands Botanical Garden. My name is Ganesh Kumar.
The whole beginnings of WBG was the grief of losing my mom. After my mom's demise in 2018, everything just became so hectic because I had to take over all her roles as well. So in 2020, COVID kind of forced me to just take a step back. And it was the same period that I decided why not I do something to remember the beauty of my mom. It was the best time for me to plant that plant that I always wanted to plant on this little hill behind my house. It was the northern slope of the Woodlands Town Park East, and it was a beautiful slope. It's this winding 9-story slope. There was just a grass patch. I was thinking, wow, what better canvas can I ask for? So I planted this little plant, of course, a bit more secretively, and everyone started to appreciate the flower, Yeah, and then they said, why don't you plant more? Especially when they are in season, the pink hibiscus are huge. They are visible from all the way from below. And I think it just stood out, and my neighbors were saying how happy they are, now when they open their windows, there's some color. And of course, with all the birds and all coming, there are bird sounds. Such a beautiful hill, such a beautiful canvas. I needed something to fill that gap inside me, and at the same time to honor my mom. And each day that I look at this, it reminds me to be a good person. Yeah, so very, very important plant for me. Brownie. The early days of WBG was not an easy period. I think it was really a mammoth task to set up the garden because firstly we are on a 9-story slope with no road access as well, so everything has to be carried by hand. So we had to fill up jerry cans at my house all the way from my block and bring it down on a trolley, bring it to the garden. You can imagine 5 liters per jerry can. Most of us could only carry 2 at a time. So each day we climb maybe, more than 30 stories, in total. It was exhausting because I was also working full time. But I was very blessed though because I had my dad, Mr. Kumar, and my then helper, Bridget. They were so precious to me. My dad has been gardening with me since I was a kid. And Bridget, where she came from, she used to love growing flowers. The 3 of us had quite a lot of fun there. So in the mornings, usually I'll just walk around, making sure things have not fallen too badly. Like this fella is falling, but the bamboo has given way. So we need to hammer it back into the ground and put all of these up because they are very pretty, but they only bloom when they are a bit longer. So that's a bit of a problem for me. Yeah, so they grow very well on top of a structure. But sadly, we don't have that. So we just have to make do. So like now they are flowering, right? Maybe another couple of weeks I might have to prune them down again. Clematis vine and these yellow flowers here, yeah, both are super delicate. So this is a task that I cannot pass to anyone else. I have to slowly unwind this fella from this fella without snapping either. And ever since then, we have just been growing and growing. So 50 square meters, then we did the slope garden first. That was our first approval. Then we had the bottom garden, and now we have the hilltop garden. Now we spend 4,000 square meters. Now 4,000 square meters, if you want to put some perspective to it, That's about 40 four-room flats. And we are still growing. I mean, we are still potential to grow until the forest age. Who knows what the future holds for WBG. So these are the white tuneras, and for me, right, they are a must-have in every garden. If you see the center, they look black from a distance, but if you go very close, you see they're actually very violet purple. For bees, they love blues and purples. So you come early in the morning about sunrise, and you'll see them just happily taking the nectar from these flowers. It's a beautiful sight, you know. For me, pollinators are extremely crucial. Every year, billions of dollars worth of crops we eat were pollinated by bees. And butterflies themselves are also great pollinators. They love to feed on flowers, especially showy flowers that we love to plant. And I think they make any kid happy. Besides just their role as pollinators, I think they're very, very important for our mental health as well. No one can be sad seeing a pretty butterfly go by. And if they actually land on a flower, you'll see just how iridescent their wings are. You know, it keeps you present. You are transfixed on the butterfly when it flies past you. You won't think of anything else. And your mind just gets to be in the moment. It gives you a kind of peace and mindfulness that not many things can. I do come across, like, as sometimes, you know, grandparents saying, oh, we catch butterflies so we can bring home and show our grandkids. I said, no, the true beauty of a butterfly is seeing it free. I think that applies to all these creatures that fly. I don't know about flying cockroaches, but, you know, at least for birds and bees and butterflies, they must be in their element. And I think that is what we need to learn, to respect nature and respect all these animals in nature. So this is the Bauhinia cognea plant. So I've been planting it for many years. It didn't seem to really flower, you know, but this time, once the structure started to give way, I do not know why it's starting to flower like crazy. So it's a problem for me because I don't have the heart to prune it at this point. So once the flowers have dropped off, then we have to rebuild the structure. My favorite flowers is a question I get all the time. It goes without saying, definitely hibiscus are at the top of the list, right? Number one. But second will be wildflowers. I love wildflowers. Like, people think I'm crazy sometimes when I look at the grass and I say, oh, pretty. And to them it's like, that's just a weed, right? But, you know, it's just we don't take enough time to admire these things or just to like look at it, you know. Yeah, some grasses are so pretty and they feed so many insects, right? I would always tell people, do you know that weeds are actually the basis of the pyramid for the insect kingdom, right? For food. Yeah, without all these grasses, everything will eventually die out. And when I show them these particular grasses and have them just look at them closer, and then they're like, wow, we take these things for granted. And I think that applies to life as well. Okay, so later what we'll be doing is, if you saw these big jumbo bags at the bottom of the garden, yep, right, those contain compost, we'll bring them up. You know, yeah, then we apply them to the plants. So the flowers are starting to come, but we had a heavy downpour yesterday, right? Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of flowers have shrunken, okay, the delicate ones. Yeah, but you'll see a lot of stuff, so that's good. Yep. Yeah, okay, it only lasts a few days. So yeah, enjoy it while you can. Right, okay, I'll take you guys around later lah. Yeah, sure, no can? Okay, yeah. What is amazing is that our group of volunteers has grown incredibly over the years. My pool of volunteers fulfill the needs of the garden in so many ways. You know, of course, first and foremost, gardening, right? We do planting, weeding, pruning, and then sometimes I even teach them how to shape certain trees to grow more prettily. There's also another group of young people and seniors. They love to build stuff. So you see, our garden has so many trellises and structures. You know, we even used to have an aviary. We have a pond. So you see, the diversity is incredible of who can be involved in a garden. You don't need to be a gardener. Yeah, we are very, very chill here, and I think that's what the community loves. There were days that we met up to do so much of work, and then it's such a lovely sunny day, and you just see all these butterflies and birds, and I can tell you, we can sit there for an hour and a half too, and we didn't do anything at all. And I want my volunteers to know, you see, what you are doing today is having an effect. Of course, we also advocate a lot for environmental issues. Since we work with a lot of young people, And my primary thing is always the non-usage of chemicals. Here at WBG, we don't use pesticides. So I always have gardeners coming to me and saying, hey, why are your plants like so holy, right? All these holes on the plants. To me, that is a very proud thing, right? Because it shows that the garden doesn't use pesticides. In nature, how often do you find a pristine plant? There are so many things that feed on it, various flies, grasshoppers, even lizards, caterpillars. So to get a perfect plant doesn't make sense in nature. So when you go to a garden and you see these sort of things, the plant may not look as nice, but you know that it's feeding your biodiversity. So don't use pesticides because they get into our underwater streams, and they will reach our water sources as well, our drinking water sources. You can either not use anything, that's the best, create an excellent ecosystem for the biodiversity to sort out its pests. To us, they are pests, but actually they are part of the food chain, right? So all these other insects and creatures feed on these pests. You just give time for the ecosystem to develop, you let spiders come in, you let ladybugs come in, and they will sort out all these issues on their own. Mother Nature knows what she's doing. I think one thing that really inspired me a lot at the start was all these people walking the garden. I remember there was this lady, she used to walk with a back brace. I just stopped my work and then I asked her, Auntie, why, what happened to your back? Why are you walking when I can see you're in pain? And she told me that she just went for some back op. She was asked to stay at home, but she said she cannot imagine a day not coming by the garden to see the flowers. She said it makes her happy and it makes her forget her pain. That reminds me of another story about this guy. He shared with me, that how his mom was sick for the few months, and he told me that she had passed on, very recently. And he said that every day all that she wanted was to come in her wheelchair and sit in front of the garden. And I could totally empathize with him because I was in the same situation and he was sharing with me. Now whenever he comes to the garden, he thinks of his mom. And that was so beautiful for me. It's important for me for WBG to be established as a mental wellness zone for a number of reasons. Being a mental health patient myself, I do understand the therapeutic effects of nature. So I would love to bring that to everyone as well. Nothing like walking in a space and just forgetting your problems for a while. Because I believe one of the biggest reasons for mental health issues these days is fatigue. We all go through problems, right? But sometimes we think too much about our problems that our brain doesn't get a rest and becomes exhausted. Sometimes all we need is a short walk in the park, just 5-10 minutes of a relaxed walk, and that will give us a lot of reprieve, I would say, from whatever we are thinking. When you smell a flower and it's processing in your brain, you've seen many times that people smell a lovely rose. They tend to close their eyes. Why? Because the brain focuses on that smell. It's something so subtle, but it's so powerful. Because why? In that few moments, your troubles didn't cross your mind. When you're depressed, you are constantly thinking of your problems. Right? You go to bed thinking of your problems, you dream about your problems. The moment you wake up, before you brush your teeth, your problems are the first things to hit you, right? Yeah, and so I think this mindfulness word is very, very important. One thing that I love to do at the garden is we work with a lot of mental health groups, right? I love to ask this question at the end of my tour. Did you guys think about your problems at any point during the garden tour? And every single person has answered no. Like I said, you just smelling stuff, hearing the sound of birds, all these things are therapeutic very subconsciously, and nature is the only thing that can provide this. Yeah, watching a movie, even hanging out with friends, I've been through depression. I tell you, none of this works. Yeah, no matter how hard you try, your mind will always go back to these things. And I regret that for that few years after my mom passed on till I managed to process my grief, I didn't do this. It was because I was just so busy. So now that I know and it worked, I hope to share this as much as I can. Yeah. So another way that the WBG actually addresses mental wellness is to work with marginalized groups as well. We have sessions with the police force where graduating officers come down and do a session before they are passing out.
And at the same time, we also work with the sisters. Sometimes we have sessions where both of them are working next to each other. And it's really, really lovely because why you actually see these two groups interacting with each other. So a lot of the sisters we work with actually come and tell me that they never thought they would talk to a police officer as a friend. And I think that is the true success of what is happening here. We want everyone to be equal here. You see our logo. It is very colorful, so everyone thinks that, oh, it's because WBG is a flower garden. So besides the flower garden part, they actually encompass all your ribbons, your green ribbon for drug rehab, your yellow ribbon for second chances, purple ribbon for those with disabilities. Yeah, so all these things are encompassed in the WBG logo.
Although I planted the first couple of plants for myself to get over the grief of losing my mom, eventually it became about the community. People started walking and telling me how much they look forward to seeing the plants, flowers each day. And I think it got me excited and motivated to continue planting. And at the same time, of course, it was a lovely thing for nature as well.
Everything that is done at WBG is unconditional. And I think that's what I love, even from my volunteers themselves. We do it because we feel we are one kampong, and we love nature. So what more than just creating a space that we all come together. I'm as happy as my visitors, getting to meet new people, getting to meet such wonderful people, and exposing these wonderful, beautiful people to everyone else. I think that is what makes me really happy.
So they say laughter is the best medicine. I would like to differ and say that I think gardening is the best medicine, or rather nature is the best medicine. But when we see the things that happen in the garden, time just stops and you feel a calm or happiness for whatever you have done, and that is very, very impactful.
Nature brought the community together, brought people together, brought smiles, and then of course all the work that we do, our art, our music, everything is related to nature. And nothing better than to do all these activities in a natural space. This is the impact we have created in the community. Activities right at the heartlands and easily accessible to everyone. And I think that is very, very important because we have so many beautiful parks around Singapore. So I do hope that the impact that we're creating here will be replicated elsewhere as well.